The day we went to the courthouse to file for divorce, Caleb came with his stepsister. Unlike our usual arguments, I remained quiet the entire time, submitting the documents and signing my name. As I was leaving, I heard him comforting her. "Lana, don't blame yourself anymore. She won't actually go through with it. I've been spoiling her too much these past few years. It's for the best. Really, this will give her time to cool off. Otherwise, it will always be difficult for you and your son." His stepsister sighed softly. "Caleb, maybe I should just take Noah and move out. I don't want her to still be angry in a month. And you two actually get divorced. I'd become the villain in all this." Caleb let out a small scoff. "Impossible. She's just using the 1-month cooling off period to threaten me. You wait and see. When the day comes, Sophie will never show up. Then I can rest easy." It was a windy day. When Lana got out of the car, her body swayed in the wind, and she stumbled into the man beside her. Caleb instinctively reached out and put his arm around her shoulder. He smiled, looking down as if about to say something to her, when he suddenly saw me walking around the corner. In that instant, his expression turned cold, and his voice seemed to carry a chill. "Sophie, don't jump to conclusions again. I was just helping Lana. We're at the courthouse. Mind your, let's go inside." I cut him off and walked straight in. He seemed momentarily stunned. After all, in the past, whenever a scene like this occurred, I would have launched into a tirade, as if I'd caught them in the act. But he quickly seemed to come to his own conclusion. And as I walked towards the hall, I heard a familiar sigh behind me. In the waiting area, Caleb sat across from me, with Lana beside him. He frowned slightly, looking at me. "I have to take Noah for an interview at a private school later. I just gave them a ride. It's not some ridiculous scheme where Lana is trying to provoke you." Lana shot him a reproachful look. "Caleb, you're so gentle when you talk to me. Why are you so harsh with Sophie? You should really say less." Caleb pressed his lips together and said nothing more. "Sophie," Lana said, her gaze soft, "I came in specifically to try and talk to you one more time. We're family. I don't blame you for misunderstanding me in the past. Marriage is difficult. Please don't do something impulsive." She smiled at me as she finished. She had a dignified, elegant face, and her slow, measured way of speaking gave her an air of gentle, intellectual trustworthiness. I didn't speak, my gaze drifting past her to the queue number display on the wall. It was on number 9. I was number 12. 3 more to go. At 15 minutes each, it would be about another 45 minutes. I counted silently in my head. "Sophie, can you stop being so childish? Lana is my sister. You should at least show her some respect. Your attitude is making everyone uncomfortable." My gaze returned from the screen to the two of them. Caleb was staring at me, his expression displeased. His eyes were filled with the familiar look of blame and exhaustion I had grown used to. Beside him, Lana gave a sad smile and turned her head slightly. She was a master of the saying more with silence technique. "Then you should comfort your sister properly." I said it without a trace of emotion. A flash of anger crossed Caleb's face. He spoke in a strained, suppressed tone. "There you go again, targeting Lana. Sophie, everyone has to pay a price for their willfulness. If you go too far, you might not even get a chance to clean up the mess." His final words were laced with a warning. I looked at him quietly. He was handsome and tall, with a deep, resonant voice. Physically, he was flawless. In our arguments, I used to joke, all right, for the sake of that handsome face, I'll let you have your way." And when my erratic hospital shifts made it hard to sleep, I would ask him to talk to me in bed, his voice the only thing that could lull me into a peaceful slumber. Now, I raised my index finger to my lips. "Shh, we're in a public place. Let's not be loud." His voice hadn't been loud, but I wanted quiet. The divorce process went smoothly. I barely spoke, quietly submitting the documents, signing, and giving my thumbprint. The divorce agreement was simple. For years of marriage, no children. His family's company was his business. The house, cars, stocks, and funds we acquired after marriage would be split 50-50. The day I handed him the agreement, he was on his way out with Lana and her son to visit his father, who had Alzheimer's. He had only glanced at it, scribbled his signature, and slammed the door. This time, too, he didn't read it. He just signed and turned to leave. as if it were all a game he wasn't taking seriously. Outside the courthouse, the wind was still blowing. Fallen leaves littered my car. As I was patiently clearing them off, I heard Caleb's voice carried on the wind. He was comforting Lana. Lana, don't blame yourself anymore. She won't actually go through with it. It's for the best. Really. This will give her time to cool off. Otherwise, it will always be difficult for you and your son. Lana's voice was full of sadness and helplessness. Caleb, maybe I should just take Noah and move out. I don't want her to still be angry in a month. And you two actually get divorced. I'd become the villain in all this. Caleb let out a small scoff. Impossible. She's just using the 1-month cooling off period to threaten me. You wait and see. When the day comes, Sophie will never show up. A strong gust of wind swept through, swallowing the rest of his words. It also swept all the leaves from my car, blowing away even the fine dust. A good wind, I said, looking up at the sky. Before driving away, when I returned to the villa, Mrs. Mason was directing a moving company as they packed our things. Ma'am, I didn't dare touch this wall. I think we need a professional. Otherwise it would be a shame to damage it. It was an entire wall of photos, filled with memories from my 4 years of marriage with Caleb. I had carefully selected each frame over the years. I had painstakingly designed the layout. I even did the weekly cleaning myself. Throw it all away. I didn't even look up as I went upstairs. Mrs. Mason's eyes widened in disbelief. Ma'am, please don't mind me for saying this, but it's normal for couples to argue. Mr. Cross is so good to you. You can just scare him a little by moving out. They're brother and sister. After all, a woman can't be two. I leaned against the second floor railing, looking down. Mrs. Mason, after you finish packing, you can leave tonight. She froze. What do you mean? Where would I go this late? I mean you're fired. As for where to go, Lana is living with Mr. Cross in his high-rise apartment now. You can go to her. Why would I go to her? She asked, bewildered. I was surprised. Haven't you two secretly become like godmother and goddaughter? Didn't you just bring her back some expensive tea from your hometown? It's only right that she take you in. Mrs. Mason's face paled. I just felt sorry for her and her son. So I brought them some tea. Felt sorry. So sorry that they needed $1,000 tea. My expression was blank. I gave you $3,000 to buy that special tea from your hometown, since the one you brought back for me costs $20 a pound. Remember to leave the rest of the money before you go. She became flustered and quickly explained. Ma'am, I spent all $3,000 on the tea. I don't have any money left. I thought, since you're all family, you wouldn't mind who drank the expensive tea and who drank the cheap kind. Besides, Mr. Cross said to treat her like a mistress of the house. Before she could finish, I turned and went into my bedroom. Closing the door, I opened my social media and, sure enough, Lana had posted again. It was a photo from a high-end restaurant. 3 hands clinking glasses. 2 adults. 1 child. No caption. But it left a lot to the imagination. Someone commented, "Does Noah have a new dad? Congratulations." Lana replied, "Don't guess randomly. Noah just passed his school interview." I looked at the man's hand in the photo. Though the sleeve covered his wrist, a faint scar was visible. It was from the first time Caleb and I met, when he shielded me from a knife. 6 years ago, I was a resident on the night shift in the ER when an agitated family member attacked me. He swung a knife, and at the last second, a man's arm shot out to protect my neck. Caleb was cut several times, his arm bleeding profusely. After things calmed down, I disinfected and bandaged his wounds with trembling hands. He leaned back in a chair, looked at me for a long moment, and smiled. "Hey doc, if you keep shaking like that, I'm worried I'll bleed out before you're done." I was both grateful and ashamed. "Thank you. I'm sorry." As he was about to leave, I gathered my courage and said loudly, "If you're so afraid of bleeding out, then you shouldn't be trying to kill yourself." Next to the deep cuts, there were several smaller, newer wounds. They were neat and clearly not from the attacker. He had come to the hospital that night to have those treated. He looked at me with deep eyes, silent for a few seconds, then explained casually, "You've misunderstood. I wasn't trying to kill myself. It's just a lot of pressure. You know, pain can be a way to relieve stress." I didn't believe such a ridiculous theory. I frowned, staring at him seriously, trying to use my authority as a doctor to make him realize his mistake. He looked at my expression and, for some reason, smiled again. All right, Doc. Thanks for the reminder. After Caleb and I got together, I learned that he was not only handsome but also successful and wealthy. But I didn't care. If he had money, he had money. All that mattered was that I loved him. His assistant once asked me earnestly, "Miss Scott, how did you overcome your nervousness when you first started spending time with Mr. Cross?" I was confused. He smiles a lot. He's good-tempered. And he's a hero who stood up for a stranger. What's there to be nervous about? The assistant looked at me as if I had told him a fairy tale. Mr. Cross smiles a lot. Good-tempered. Caleb later explained why his wrist was injured that first day we met. After my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, his old friends, clients, and subordinates all turned on him. Someone even forged a promissory note with his signature on a blank piece of paper. The company went bankrupt. He was in debt, and his second wife left. I was 19 and had to take on everything. All these years, I've lived under immense pressure, to the point where I couldn't breathe. I had to resort to some extreme measures. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made it. I listened, my heart aching for him. So that's what you meant by using one pain to suppress another. Caleb, you are not allowed to do that ever again. Otherwise, I'll never speak to you again. He held me tightly then, his bright eyes blinking. I won't. Never again. When I'm with you, it's like I can forget all my troubles and stress. The moment I see you, I'm happy. And I can't help but smile. Sophie, you were sent by heaven to make up for all my suffering, weren't you? If a man like this appeared in your life, he faced adversity with unwavering resolve, carving out a successful career against all odds. He loved you, cherished you, and gave you a love that was uniquely yours. He looked like the other half you had dreamed of as a young girl. And he was the one who had saved your life. Would you not love him? I fell for him almost effortlessly. After we married, Caleb was even better to me, because my work often disrupted my sleep. He moved from his high-rise apartment in the city center to this quiet villa, less than 2 kilometers from the hospital. He himself spent over 3 hours a day commuting. When I was on the night shift, if he wasn't on a business trip, his car would be waiting for me outside the hospital. Once, I was sent to the capital for a 2-month training program. In that time, Caleb flew back and forth 28 times, sometimes just to have lunch with me. The only small regret was that I never got pregnant. I knew that though, he said. Let's just let it happen naturally. He was secretly hoping for a child soon. His father, though he had forgotten everything else, could still correctly identify Caleb's name when he saw a childhood photo. If Dad could see a little version of me, maybe he would remember me too. All these years, I've felt so alone, like I have no family. But it's okay. I have you now, and soon we'll have our children. I'll have more and more family. I grew up in a small, picturesque southern town. My parents were civil servants. We weren't wealthy, but they loved me very much. I was always a well-behaved, high-achieving student. And being pretty, my life had always been smooth. I knew that's how life was. There was happiness, dullness, surprises, and imperfections. No one could have a perfect life. Getting pregnant was just a test from a higher power. So I accepted this small setback with a calm heart and lived my life with even more diligence and optimism. At the hospital, I was gentle, patient, and meticulous with my patients. At home, I loved my husband without reservation, loving the home I had built. Piece by piece, I thought I could live this happily forever, until 6 months ago, his stepsister, Lana, returned. That night, I was leaving work late in a heavy downpour. Usually, Caleb's car would have been waiting. But that night, not only was his car not there, but he wasn't answering his phone. Worried something had happened, I didn't even bother calling a cab and ran home through the rain, holding an umbrella. When I opened the door, I saw him sitting calmly on the living room sofa. On the armchair next to him sat a beautiful stranger, smiling at me. That was the first time I saw Lana. Caleb, seeing me drenched, froze for a moment, then immediately got up to help me with my coat, scolding, "Why didn't you call me to pick you up?" I glanced at his phone on the table. I did. You didn't answer. He stiffened, looking away. My phone was on silent from a meeting this afternoon. I forgot to turn it back on. Lana, on the sofa, suddenly curved her lips into a slight smile. When Caleb introduced her as his stepsister, I was surprised. He had briefly mentioned a stepmother before. His father had remarried when he was 15. The stepmother had a daughter 2 years older than him. They had lived together for 4 years. After the company went bankrupt, the stepmother and stepsister left. He had spoken of it in a detached tone, never even mentioning his stepsister's name. I figured they had no blood relation. Their bond wasn't deep, and they would probably never see each other again. Hence his indifference. When Lana left, Caleb didn't get up. He sat on the sofa with his head down, looking cold and distant. She didn't seem to mind. She gave me a gentle hug and said with a smile, "You're very beautiful. My little brother is a lucky man." After she was gone, Caleb apologized to me sincerely. I pouted and grumbled a little, asking why his stepsister had suddenly returned. He said calmly that she had lost her mother and husband in recent years, and her son was ill. She had come back to the country specifically for his treatment. I thought of her elegance and composure despite her misfortunes and remarked, "She's a strong woman. But you seemed very cold to her today." Caleb was silent for a second, then scoffed. "The moment my father had his troubles, her mother divorced him and left, taking all the family's savings with her. It made my life very difficult for a long time. The fact that I could sit and speak with her peacefully today is already quite polite." I didn't ask any more questions. You can't judge another's pain, I thought. That was his past. He had the right to face it however he chose. That night, Caleb's love-making was fierce, completely different from his usual gentle affection. It was almost rough. At one point, I cried out, "Caleb, that hurts." He suddenly stopped. He stared at me in the darkness for a few seconds, then said gruffly, "Call me Cal." The next time I saw Lana was after I returned from a 2-week conference. I hadn't told Caleb I was coming home early, wanting to surprise him. As I walked in, I heard a woman's laughter from the kitchen. I went over and saw Lana cooking, with Mrs. Mason assisting her. In the living room, Caleb was playing chess on the floor with a little boy of 5 or 6. The table was set with steaming dishes, the TV murmuring in the background. It was a picture of a warm and happy family. Lana saw me first. She looked surprised. "You're back." Caleb turned, stunned for a moment, then got up and walked towards me, asking the same question. "Sophie, you're back." I suppressed the discomfort in my chest, said my hellos, and went upstairs, using the excuse that I was tired. Caleb followed me up and told me that Lana and her son would be staying with us for a while. I was taken aback. "Staying here?" He was silent for a few seconds, a look of helplessness on his face. "Noah has congenital insensitivity to pain. There's a specialist at your hospital who has developed a new gene therapy. Lana came back to the country to try it. She asked if they could stay here for a while, since the villa is close to the hospital. And we have an aide. And you're a doctor. If Noah gets hurt, you can all take care of him more easily." I was confused. "But I thought you resented your stepsister." His expression darkened. "There's no point in dwelling on the past. Besides my father, Lana is the only other family I've lived with. I thought if she spent more time with him, it might help his condition. Anyway, they'll only be here for a few months. Sophie, I just agreed to this and haven't had a chance to tell you. I hope you don't mind." I said nothing more, though I was uncomfortable. His reasons were logical. Caleb had few relatives. It was rare for him to have a sister, and given her circumstances, it would be heartless of me to object. Looking at his apologetic face, I reached out and playfully tapped his nose. Honestly, I was a little annoyed, but I'm fine now. He looked at me and smiled. At dinner, Lana thanked me. I generously offered my help if they needed anything at the hospital. At the time, I thought it was a small thing, just a few months. But as it turned out, I was far too naive. When did things start to change? Was it when the dozens of collectible dolls I had carefully arranged in the glass cabinet were suddenly in a jumbled heap, replaced by a few broken action figures? Was it when women's clothes, including lace underwear, were always folded on the sofa? Was it when the white carpet I meticulously cared for was covered in children's toys, torn tissues, and crayon scribbles? Was it when Lana started acting more and more like the mistress of the house? I was getting busier and busier. with clinic hours and surgeries. One day, after a marathon of surgeries, I was exhausted and craving a bowl of hot chicken soup. I called Mrs. Mason ahead of time to ask her to make it for dinner. But when I got home that night, there was a large bowl of fish soup on the table. I asked about the chicken soup. Mrs. Mason said nonchalantly, "Lana said Noah wanted fish soup." I figured since Mr. Cross was eating out, and it was just the few of us, one soup would be enough. I was silent for a few seconds. "But I'm allergic to fish." "Mrs. Mason, don't you remember?" She finally remembered, looking embarrassed. Lana smiled and patted her shoulder. "It's my fault. It has nothing to do with Mrs. Mason." "Sophie, if you really want chicken soup tonight, I can order some for you right now." At that moment, Noah pointed at me and shouted, "I hate her. She won't let me have fish soup. She's a bad person. Kick her out." I told myself, Lana is Caleb's sister. Noah is a poor, unfortunate child. They will be leaving soon. For Caleb's sake, I had to endure. I'm not a person with a wide range of interests or a rich, colorful world. I've always been one to focus on one thing at a time. As a child, I focused on my studies. As an adult, I focused on my work. After getting married, I had one more focus. Caleb. My father once told me during a heart that while this way of life was pure, it was also vulnerable. But I didn't see anything wrong with it. Because of my focus, I had achieved good results at every important stage of my life. I didn't realize then that people are the variable. Lately, when I left the hospital after a late shift, Caleb's car was rarely there. Dinner plans we made were often canceled at the last minute. Even on my rare days off, we couldn't spend any time alone. The reason was usually Lana and her son, Noah, being insensitive to pain, would often get injured without realizing it. Because of his condition, he was also spoiled and would threaten to harm himself with a knife if things didn't go his way. Lana always presented a strong and resilient front, but she would occasionally let her vulnerability show. She would hold back tears and turn away, or lock herself in her room for hours, only to emerge with red, swollen eyes, chatting and laughing as if nothing was wrong. It was this facade of strength masking a fragile interior that elicited sympathy and made people take her side. But I didn't understand that then. I only knew there was a constant, nagging tightness in my chest, like a heavy stone, weighing me down. I started lingering at the hospital, delaying my return home, because when I did go home, I felt like an intruder, like they were the family. Finally, one night, as Caleb held me, I broached the subject tentatively. "Why don't we rent an apartment for Lana and Noah near the hospital? We can pay for it and hire a nanny." He closed his eyes and instinctively objected. "We can't do that. It's too hard for Lana to raise Noah alone." Lana. I hadn't realized he had switched from calling her Lana to the more intimate Lana. A week later, I finally had a day off. I wanted to spend it alone with Caleb, but he dismissed the idea, saying it was Noah's birthday and he had promised to take them to the amusement park. A wave of emotions crashed over me. I shouted, "I don't agree." Caleb looked at me, shocked. Seeing his expression, I let out all the frustration and discomfort that had been building up inside me. He sat on the edge of the bed, listening silently. I thought that by speaking my mind, he would feel guilty, finally realize my pain, and apologize. But to my surprise, he stared at me for a long moment and then said gravely, "Noah is a poor, unfortunate child, and Lana is a poor, unfortunate woman. You don't need to target them like this." I froze, as if turned to stone. I couldn't believe the man in front of me was Caleb, my loving husband. Caleb. I couldn't understand. How could a person change so drastically, right before my eyes? He sighed and forced a tolerant smile. "Sophie, if you're really against it, then we won't go." Lana, Noah, and Mrs. Mason, who had been excitedly getting ready, all looked disappointed when they heard the plan was canceled. The atmosphere in the house that day was oppressive. Everyone wore a look of resigned endurance. As I walked through the house, I felt like I was the one who had done something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. I couldn't figure it out. The conflict erupted in an unexpected way. After convincing myself that I only had to endure for 2 more months, I threw myself into my work at the hospital. finally earning the chance to be the lead surgeon on a difficult operation. This surgery was crucial for my promotion to associate chief physician. I had prepared myself to be in peak condition, but on the morning of the surgery, after my usual glass of milk, before I could even leave the house, I broke out in a severe case of hives, my whole body itching uncontrollably. In that state, I couldn't even hold a scalpel, let alone perform surgery. After having to call into the hospital to cancel, I swallowed my discomfort and asked Lana with a stern face if she had touched my milk. Mrs. Mason valued her high-paying job too much to risk it by putting something in my milk, no matter how muddled she was. And Caleb would never do such a thing. At my question, Lana blinked slowly and, in front of Caleb and Mrs. Mason, swore to the heavens. Sophie, if I, Lana, deliberately harmed you, may I be struck by a car and killed the moment I step outside. May I never be reborn. Large tears rolled down her cheeks, but her expression was firm and unwavering. I turned my gaze to Noah, who was glaring at me. Noah, did you touch my... That's enough, Caleb roared. Sophie, what is it that you want? Everyone is walking on eggshells around you. Haven't you noticed? Everyone is afraid of upsetting you. Everyone is compromising. And you still want to falsely accuse a child. How could you become this person? I looked at Caleb, stunned. Everyone is compromising. For me. His eyes were filled with disappointment and forbearance. He said slowly, aren't they? Sophie, I don't understand. Why can't you tolerate them? What is it that you want? In that moment, a chill washed over me, so cold that I couldn't even feel the physical discomfort anymore. After a long moment, I pointed at Lana and said calmly, you ask what I want. I'll tell you. I want them to move out. Caleb's gaze turned cold, his voice like ice. Sophie, then I'll tell you. That's impossible. I promised them they could stay for 6 months, not a day less. Fine. Then let's get a divorce. The words hung in the air, and the room fell silent. Caleb gritted his teeth. Sophie, what are you saying? I looked up at him. I'm saying, either they move out, or we get a divorce. I had made up my mind. I was busy. I didn't have the time or energy to fight with Lana. I wasn't a detective. I couldn't find evidence to prove who was right or wrong. I only knew one thing. This was my home. I had the right to decide who lived here and who didn't. Caleb fell silent. His gaze locked with mine. No one spoke. A flicker of nervousness crossed Lana's face. After a long moment, Caleb lowered his head, his voice weary. I'll find them another place. He had yielded, but I felt no joy, because I knew I had used his love for me as a threat. I felt terrible. I didn't understand how such a simple matter had come to this. Lana's face was a mask of extreme disappointment. Noah burst into tears. I'm not leaving. This is my home. This is my mommy's and my uncle's home. I'm not leaving. Soon, Caleb found a suitable apartment. Lana and her son were scheduled to move out the next day. I was at home recovering from my allergic reaction, which gave me time to process the events of the past few weeks. I didn't know if I had done the right thing. Other wives might file for divorce because of infidelity, domestic violence, or a change of heart. Caleb had done none of those things. It was just a small matter. Just because he had let his stepsister stay with us. I couldn't help but wonder, was I overreacting? It was only a few months. Couldn't I have just endured it? But for some reason I couldn't explain. A woman's intuition told me I had to do it, even if it hurt our relationship temporarily. I had to get Lana and her son out of the house as soon as possible. Caleb and I still had a long life ahead of us, and we would have children, without any distractions. Our relationship could slowly heal. The thought of children made me pause. I suddenly realized my period was 2 months late. My heart began to pound. There were no pregnancy tests in the house. Unable to contain my excitement, I got out of bed to go to the neighborhood pharmacy. Just then, Lana opened my door. She had a faint smile on her face and said she had come to thank me before she left. My gaze fell on the pink hair clip she was wearing. It was an old-fashioned, girlish clip that looked out of place on her. What startled me was that I had seen it before. Caleb was a sentimental person. He had a treasure box filled with mementos from his youth, including this very hair clip. I had once joked, asking if it was a souvenir from a first love. He had calmly said it belonged to his mother. Lana said a few brief words and left. It was as if she had come just for me to see that clip. On my way back from the pharmacy with the test, I passed the second floor study and heard a woman's choked voice from inside. Normally, I would have walked away, but the image of the hair clip flashed in my mind, and I stopped. The door was ajar. The voice was quiet but clear. I know we agreed to forget the past, to act like a normal brother and sister, and never to hurt Sophie. But Caleb, I still feel so wronged. I haven't done anything wrong. I've been enduring, compromising, just because I'm your stepsister and she's your wife. Do I have to be treated so unfairly? Caleb, my life is so hard. Sometimes I feel like there's no point in living. Caleb's low voice replied, I didn't handle this well. You've been wronged. Since I'm leaving anyway, I don't want to hold back anymore. Caleb, I just want to ask you one question. That night, all those years ago, have you ever regretted it? Caleb said nothing. You haven't forgotten, have you? Otherwise, you wouldn't have kept the hair clip I left on your bed that day. After a moment of silence, a soft voice said, I haven't forgotten. I've never forgotten. My head suddenly roared. Everything around me seemed to twist and spin. The study door, the railing, the hallway, and in the hallway, Noah's face, suddenly appearing. Get out of my house, he whispered, then rushed forward and grabbed me. The next second, we were tumbling down the stairs. Thump, thump, thump. When I staggered to my feet, I saw Noah lying on the floor, his face covered in blood, his eyes closed, motionless. The study door flew open, and Caleb and Lana rushed out, horrified. Lana cradled Noah in her arms and screamed at me, grief-stricken. Sophie, we were leaving. You got what you wanted. Why did you have to hurt Noah? He's just a poor, innocent child. I didn't. He pushed me, I shouted, but my voice was barely a whisper. They carried Noah to the hospital. I felt a warm gush between my legs. My body gave out, and I collapsed onto the floor. Bright red blood pooled around me. My eyes widened, and I trembled, unable to form coherent words. Caleb, save my baby, I screamed with all my might, but it was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Fortunately, Caleb heard. He stopped. I reached out to him, my hand shaking, but he didn't move. He just stared at me with cold eyes. Sophie, this time, you've truly disappointed me. With that, he turned and rushed out with Noah, not looking back. From that day on, Caleb and I became strangers under the same roof. And then, I brought out the divorce agreement. He signed it without hesitation and moved into his high-rise apartment with Lana and her son that same day. Leaving the courthouse, Caleb was in a foul mood. He had thought Sophie wouldn't show up. When Lana had timidly asked for a ride to Noah's school interview, he had agreed without a second thought. So when he saw Sophie at the courthouse entrance, his face immediately darkened, and a single thought consumed him. She actually came. She was so willful. In that moment, he decided he would use this divorce nonsense to teach her a lesson. Throughout the process, Sophie's expression was placid. She barely looked at him. He was deeply disappointed, a feeling mixed with a simmering anger. Outside, Lana said sadly that if she hadn't suggested moving in, they never would have reached this point. He comforted her distractedly, saying Sophie would never really divorce him. She was just using it as a threat because he had spoiled her too much. Lana asked, really? He froze for a moment, then scoffed. Of course Sophie wouldn't really divorce him. Her ultimate goal was just to get Lana and her son to move out. But she had so easily thrown out the word divorce, using it to threaten him. That was what disappointed him the most. At the hospital, Lana had asked with tearful grief, why would Sophie be so cruel to Noah, to deliberately push him down the stairs? He had countered in surprise. How could Sophie have pushed him on purpose? At most, she pushed him away in anger, and they both fell by accident. After Noah recovered, he became very attached to Caleb, as if afraid of being kicked out again. Lana suggested they move into his old apartment. He instinctively refused, but Lana's eyes reddened, and she said softly, Caleb, don't worry, I won't be like I was before. Her voice was soft and alluring, and for a moment, it reminded him of how she used to be. He pressed his lips together and didn't refuse again. In the first week of the cooling off period, Caleb threw himself into his work. deliberately trying not to think about Sophie. He had told himself he would use this opportunity to teach her a lesson, so he couldn't show any weakness. He worked late every night, scrolling through his phone over and over. But since that day, Sophie hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't even posted on social media. Noah kept talking about wanting to go to the amusement park, complaining that his auntie was mean and wouldn't let him go. He was about to scold Noah when an idea struck him. Fine. That day, he deliberately took many photos with Lana and her son, making them look happy and close. He knew Lana would post them. He thought Sophie might see them. With her jealous nature, she would probably come storming over to confront him. But the first day, nothing. The second day, nothing. On the third night, he came home from work, exhausted. He went into the bathroom and found Lana, naked, showering. She shrieked and fell, letting out a pained cry. She said she had twisted her ankle. He threw a towel in, wrapped her up, and carried her out in his arms. She apologized, saying the shower in the other bathroom was broken, and she had used his since he wasn't home. He said nothing, just carried her to her room and placed her on the bed. As he turned to leave, Lana's voice drifted from behind him. Actually, I've never forgotten either. He froze. She continued. It was your first time. And mine too, Caleb. If only things hadn't happened between our parents. Caleb stood there, stunned. For years, he had deliberately avoided thinking about that chaotic, forbidden night of his youth. The cicadas had screamed. The air was humid. He had just finished reading a forbidden book a classmate had lent him, and his blood was pounding. She had appeared in his room in a thin nightgown, saying she couldn't reach a spot on her back to apply medicine and asking for his help. That night, the room was filled with the strong scent of liniment, mixed with another strange smell, which would resurface in his memory for years to come. It was, after all, a testament to his youth. So when, years later, Lana reappeared in his life, seeking his help, how could he refuse? It was all in the past. She was his stepsister. It was only right to help her. That's what he told himself. But he never expected Sophie to react so strongly. The thought of Sophie brought him back to his senses. He turned to say something, but Lana had dropped the towel. She stood there, naked, her eyes filled with tears. Caleb, you've been so lonely all these years, haven't you? Let your big sister take care of you. He stared, shocked and angry, then roared. Lana, if you do this again, you will move out immediately. He stormed out of the room. A churning frustration roiled inside him, as if something that should have remained unsaid had been brutally exposed. It made him angry, panicked, and a little guilty. He suddenly had an overwhelming urge to see Sophie, a desperate need. He went to the villa. The lights were on, which instantly calmed him. Sophie always had this magical ability to bring peace and stability to his chaotic, helpless heart. Just like the first time he saw her, she was bandaging his arm, her head bowed, tears falling onto his skin, one after another. It gave him a strange feeling. He started counting. 7 drops. 8. 50. He was amazed. He couldn't understand how such a small girl could cry so many tears. He knew she was scared. He, who hadn't joked with anyone in years, found himself making a joke. If his colleagues had seen him, their jaws would have dropped. But it didn't feel unnatural. It felt relaxing, as if this was how he was always meant to be. As he was leaving, the girl, who was trembling like a reed in the wind, put on a serious expression and told him he shouldn't try to kill himself. He was slightly shocked. He hadn't expected this little girl to be so perceptive. She had misunderstood. He had never thought of suicide. It was just an extreme way of dealing with stress. She didn't believe him. Her dark eyes fixed on his. He suddenly smiled. A genuine joy welled up inside him. He said to her, "Thanks for the reminder, Doc." The password was wrong. He stood at the door, stunned. Sophie had changed the password. He found that hard to accept. It couldn't be to keep him out, could it? He took out his phone and called her. It rang twice before being disconnected. He called again. Disconnected again. What is it? A text message from her popped up. 3 simple words. He let out a long breath and gave his prepared excuse. "I came to get my pajamas. You know I can't sleep without them." Sophie didn't reply for a while. Just as he thought the door was about to open, she texted again. In the box by the door. Find it yourself. He was confused. The box by the door. He looked around. There was indeed a pile of cardboard boxes by the door, clearly waiting to be thrown out. He rummaged through them and, sure enough, found some of his clothes stuffed in one of the boxes. This made him angry. If Sophie threw them all out, what would he use when he came back? Suddenly, he saw, leaning against the wall, dozens of picture frames of various sizes. He squinted and realized it was the photo wall. Those photos that Sophie had once treasured. Now, they were just a messy pile in the corner. He looked at the pile in disbelief. A storm of complex emotions washed over him. Anger, grievance, and even a touch of self-pity. He felt as if everything he had tried so hard to protect had been casually trampled and humiliated. He suddenly turned and strode away. He returned to his apartment. Lana was sitting quietly on the sofa, lost in thought. She looked at him with red eyes, her expression timid, pitiful, and helpless. He frowned, walked over, and after a moment's hesitation, slowly reached out to her. Her long lashes fluttered as she slowly rested her cheek in his hand. Caleb. He didn't do anything with her. He just curled up in her arms and slept through the night. He had been feeling wrong too. He needed comfort too. For the next while, he took a vacation, traveling with Lana and her son, dining at the finest restaurants, buying expensive jewelry and bags. He accompanied Noah to every hospital appointment. Lana, as usual, posted photos frequently. During this time, he ran into Sophie twice. The first time was in the hospital corridor. He was holding Noah's hand, with Lana on his other side. Lana's heel twisted, and he instinctively put his arm around her shoulder. He looked up and saw Sophie walking towards them, her hands in her pockets. He pressed his lips together and stopped. She just glanced at them, her expression blank, and walked past without a word. The second time was at a steakhouse. Noah had said he wanted steak, so he had taken them there. As they were leaving, he saw Sophie entering with another man. They sat down by the window. He instinctively walked over and said with a sarcastic smile, "Sophie, aren't you going to introduce me?" Sophie frowned slightly, but said nothing. Looking at her familiar profile, he felt a momentary daze, an urge to say, "Sophie, stop being angry. Let's go home." Just then, Lana's gentle voice came from behind him. "Caleb, Noah is sleepy. Let's go home." She seemed to have just noticed Sophie, a look of surprise on her face. "Sophie, what a coincidence. And this is..." She looked the man up and down. The man turned his head slightly, glanced at Caleb, and said calmly, "So you're Sophie's ex-husband?" Caleb said coldly, "Not yet an ex. And who might you be?" The man smiled and said unhurriedly, "I'm one of Sophie's suitors. Best of luck with the divorce." Caleb laughed, a mixture of anger and disbelief. He stared at Sophie, in such a hurry. Sophie looked up, her expression calm. "Yes, in quite a hurry." The man let out a muffled laugh. Caleb's face darkened, and he turned and left. After the three of them had gone, Sophie looked at the man across from her with a headache. "Alex, why are you making jokes like that?" The man smirked. "I saw it in a short drama. It's supposed to be a satisfying takedown. Turns out, it really is." Sophie was exasperated. "This is your farewell dinner. When our colleagues get here, please don't make any more jokes like that. You'll scare them to death." Caleb got drunk. He felt an emptiness inside, so he tried to fill it with glass after glass of wine. These past few days, he had been ostentatiously spending time with Lana and her son, largely to make Sophie see it on social media, to make her feel threatened, to provoke her into coming to him and apologizing. He never expected that while he was doing this, she was on a date with another man. What hurt the most was that for a moment, he saw her smiling at that man. How long had it been since Sophie had smiled at him? It seemed that not long after Lana moved in, her bright smiles had vanished. He felt so wronged, so hurt. He didn't know what he had done wrong, how his relationship with Sophie had come to this. When he woke up, he was in his bed at home. He could hear the sound of running water from the bathroom. On the bedside table was the familiar pink hair clip. He shook his head. Vague images floated in his mind, overlapping with a scene from many years ago. He realized what might have happened and felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He dressed in a cold panic and fled. Impossible. He loved Sophie. He was certain of that. So he could never have done something so irrational. Not even when he was drunk. He wandered the streets in a daze. Without realizing it, he ended up at the hospital. He saw Sophie. She was with a group of doctors, receiving a patient from an ambulance. The patient was covered in blood, screaming and struggling frantically. At one point, the patient broke free, grabbed a piece of equipment from the ambulance, and threw it. Sophie was looking down. Sophie. Caleb rushed forward. He woke up in a hospital room 2 days later. The first thing he saw was Sophie sitting by his bed. The sunlight illuminated her face, making it bright and radiant, just like she used to be. A wave of emotions washed over him. He choked out, "Sophie, as long as you're okay." Sophie smiled at him gently. "Yes, I'm fine. How are you feeling?" Seeing her smile again, his eyes welled with tears. He had been wandering like a lost soul. In that moment, the familiar sense of security finally returned. He forced a cheerful smile. "Don't worry. I'm fine. I'm strong." Probably due to the medication, he drifted off again. In his groggy state, he seemed to hear a nurse talking. That guy is something else. The equipment wasn't going to hit anyone, but he had to jump in front of it. He was shouting for Dr. Scott, trying to save her. But Dr. Scott was the furthest away. It wouldn't have hit her. Now, what was a non-incident has turned into an accident. He closed his eyes, pretending not to hear. Only one thought filled his mind. He had saved Sophie again. Whatever had happened, they could start over. The day he was discharged, he felt refreshed and clear-headed. Sophie stayed with him the whole time, handling the paperwork, picking up his medication, and driving him home. She was gentle and attentive. In the car, he said in a tone of reconciliation, "Sophie, we've both made mistakes. I apologize. From now on, let's cherish what we have. This incident made me realize how precious life is. I've decided. I'm going to take a long vacation. I want to focus on having a baby." The car screeched to a halt. He realized they were outside his high-rise apartment building. "Sophie, you're still not letting me back into the villa?" he asked with a helpless smile. Sophie lowered her eyes, then suddenly took a piece of paper from her bag and handed it to him. He raised an eyebrow and looked down. It was a pregnancy diagnosis report. Name: Sophie Scott. The date was from 2 months ago. His eyes lit up, his voice trembling with joy. "Sophie, is this real? I'm going to be a father." Sophie stared straight ahead and said quietly, "Yes, you were." He was confused. Were. This baby was not so lucky. It was only in this world for a very short time. On the day its mother fell down the stairs, it was lost. It might have survived if its father had taken it to the hospital in time. But that day, its father chose to save another child. Caleb began to tremble uncontrollably. "Before I fell that day, I heard your conversation with Lana. You told her that you had never forgotten." Sophie's voice was light and airy, as if coming from a great distance. Yet each word pierced his skin, drilled into his bones, relentlessly. "Lana is a strong woman, even in the face of misfortune. She happily documents her life. The things she can make public, she posts on social media. The things that are not suitable for all ages, she sends to me privately." Caleb whipped his head around, his face pale as he stared at her, his teeth chattering. "Like the photos of you sleeping in her arms on many nights. And the video of the two of you, the night before I was injured." Caleb's shoulders slumped, and a pained groan escaped from deep in his throat. "Don't say any more. Please. Don't say any more." Sophie turned to look at him, her expression calm. "Caleb, tomorrow is the 30th day of the cooling-off period. I've been running around making sure you could be discharged today. Also, we wouldn't be delayed. So, don't be absent tomorrow. Okay?" That day, when Caleb returned to his apartment like a man who had lost his soul, Lana rushed to hug him. "Caleb, whatever Sophie told you, it's all lies. She's just trying to get revenge on me and Noah. I'm your sister. Besides your father, I'm the closest family you have in this world." He let her hold him, his expression blank. "Take Noah and leave. Leave now. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself. But I can't get into trouble. I promised Sophie I would cooperate with her tomorrow. This is very important to her. I can't let her down." Lana looked at him, And as if realizing something, her face filled with terror. She quickly left with Noah. For a long time after the divorce, Caleb didn't dare to go looking for Sophie. He was too ashamed to face her. He knew she didn't want to see him. After all, he couldn't even forgive himself. Finally, one night, he couldn't resist going to the villa, only to find it had new owners. Sophie had sold the place where they had lived together. He bought it back at a high price and lived there in a drunken, dream-like state, lost in a world of what-ifs. He imagined, over and over, the child that had briefly come and gone. He imagined that if the child had been born, whether a boy or a girl, it would have had big, bright, pure eyes, just like Sophie's. The first time he saw her, 3 months after the divorce, Lana and Noah reappeared. He was lying in Sophie's old bed. When he opened his eyes, he saw them. Lana was crying, her voice full of grief. Caleb, Noah's new treatment is working, but it costs a lot of money. Can you help your sister, please? He got up and, with a blank expression, began to drag her out of the house. Roughly, without a care, Lana stumbled. A pathetic sight. Noah rushed forward to bite him. He shoved him away forcefully. Noah fell to the floor and passed out. Lana's eyes widened, and she screamed, "You dare touch my son! I'll kill you! How could you do this to a child?" Caleb had only one thought. Get this woman out of here. Out of this house. Lana couldn't break free. Looking at her unconscious son, she screamed like a madwoman. You deserve it. Your whole family deserves it. Your father said he wouldn't leave us a single penny. I swapped his stroke medication. It's karma. He really became a senile old fool. Caleb looked at her in disbelief, his hands uncontrollably closing around her neck. The woman in his grasp made a dying, gasping sound. The commotion alerted the neighborhood security. They were banging on the door. He suddenly came to his senses, let go, and stumbled to the floor. Beside him, Noah's body stirred. He began to crawl towards him. The moment the door burst open, Noah's body tilted, and he tumbled down the stairs. Amidst the shocked cries of the crowd, Noah, his face covered in blood, pointed at him. It was him. He pushed me. Then he passed out. Caleb was sentenced to 1 year for intentional assault. Lana visited him in jail with a settlement agreement. The strangulation had caused a stroke, leaving her face contorted and her speech slurred. She wanted $10 million in exchange for the agreement. Caleb didn't give her a penny. He just said flatly, "It's fine. This is what we both deserve." Lana broke down, demanding, "Then what about Noah? What about our future?" He closed his eyes and didn't look at her again. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Sophie officially began her 2-year stint as a doctor on a medical aid mission in Equatorial Guinea. One day, she received a video call. In the video, Caleb looked like a different person, with a buzz cut, gaunt, his cheekbones prominent. He apologized to her earnestly, detailing the past. She said nothing, letting him speak. "I can't imagine what you went through when you were pushed down the stairs. I feel like I have no family left in this world. Sophie, I don't know how to face the long road of pain ahead." Sophie looked at him on the screen, her voice calm. "I've been through the same thing. Even with the ability to move on, healing is a long process. Later, I chose to dilute my pain with a bigger world. I hope that helps you." She hung up. Sophie turned and saw Alex. He scratched his head, looking a little awkward. "Sorry. You were speaking Chinese so loudly, it was impossible not to overhear." But, he frowned, his expression serious. "You're really brave. How could you apply to a place like this just 2 months after a miscarriage? You're lucky nothing happened." Sophie shrugged. "I never had a miscarriage." Alex raised an eyebrow. She explained, exasperated. "It was just my period. I got it wrong. Later, I just went along with it to get the divorce finalized." Alex tilted his head. "What kind of play was that?" Sophie sighed. "After being abused for so long, I had to get back at him at least once. Isn't that how all the short dramas go?" Alex was silent for a second, then burst out laughing. "I told you those short dramas were good, and you scoffed. Look who's eating their words now." Sophie smiled. Her gaze drifted to the setting sun over the African plains. Magnificent. Serene. When one door closes, another opens. The world is so vast. It can absorb all pain. What is there that can't be overcome? So she thought.